Hola, ¿cómo están, my compañeros? I need to tell you why they've been hesitant to instill these antibody tests wide scale. These antibody tests, you can test positive for antibodies capable of defending yourself against COVID-19, and you can display those antibodies from a simple prior coronavirus infection. If you've ever had the coronavirus, which is a very typical thing, any of the common coronavirus family coronaviruses, then you have most likely developed these antibodies. And if you have these antibodies, then you have the ability to fight off the quote unquote COVID 19. They say that COVID 19 is caused by the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS coronavirus 2. That's what they say, that COVID 19 is caused by SARS coronavirus 2. Coronavirus SARS coronavirus 2 will get you diagnosed with COVID 19. COVID 19, if you test positive for SARS 2, then you have the official SARS 2 from China. But if you have influenza or pneumonia and you come down with or typical coronavirus and you come down with one of these infections that causes you to produce the same antibodies that SARS-CoV-2 causes the same sort of inflammatory and infection responses, then you're also protected against this virus from China. It's a very opportunistic virus. SARS coronavirus 2 is a very voracious virus. SARS coronavirus 2 is not COVID 19. I'm having this very, very strong inkling that COVID 19 actually stands for Certificate of Vaccine ID. Certificate of Vaccine ID. COVID ID, Certificate of Vaccine ID, COVID, Certificate of Vaccine ID. And I think this is gonna just be playing into the fact that the number one thing they want individuals to do is to, let's see if I can, for your case report, this is reporting confirmed cases of COVID 19. This is not reporting confirmed cases of SARS coronavirus 2. This is confirmed cases or suspected cases of coronavirus or COVID 19. It says coronavirus disease is a disease by a newly emerged is coronavirus disease, COVID 19, is a disease. Coronavirus is a disease caused by a newly emerged coronavirus. COVID 19 is a disease caused by the newly emerged coronavirus SARS CoV 2. Okay, I guess we can't argue that because they're making PIC, COVID ID PIC, which is actually COVID ID PIC. They're changing uh, COVID 19, this is the COView weekly update, and they're changing COVID 19 to mean the percentages of death due to pneumonia, influenza, and COVID 19, PIC. So when they talk about COVID 19 PIC, they're talking about pneumonia, influenza, and the new COVID 19. Individuals diagnosed with novel coronavirus, SARS novel coronavirus, those are not the norm, but these individuals that they can lump underneath this category of deaths due to pneumonia, influenza, and COVID 19 PIC, these COVID 19 related hospitalizations and PIC mortality for the most recent week may increase as more data is received. Nationally, the overall percentage of respiratory specimens testing positive for SARS-CoV-2, the virus causing COVID-19, increased from 8.4 during the week 44 to 10.5 during week 45. Percent positivity increased among all age groups. Regionally, the percentage of respiratory specimens testing positive for SARS-CoV-2 increased in all 10 regions. Mild, moderate illness. National to overall percentage of visits to outpatient providers, emergency departments for influenza-like illness or COVID-like illness has been increasing since mid-September. COVID-like illness and influenza-like illness increased in week 45 compared to week 44. I want to make the point that the CLI and I.L.I, those are slowly becoming interchangeable. They're trying to make the I.L.I system the new CLI system. The I.L.I system is no longer having its geographical map actually. The I.L.I system is no longer having the geographical. And this is the I.L.I influenza view, influenza like illness. This is the I.L.I-Net. It tells you about the influenza and what's going on. What's interesting is that you can see this dark winter that they're speaking about. The dark winter that they're speaking about plays out right here every year. I'll go to season. Let's go to the season of, they say 27. No, we'll go last year, 2019 to 2020. And as you play, you can see that it's going from the winter, November 17th. Okay, as the winter of 2018 goes on, look, I.L.I activity increases drastically. This I.L.I activity is now being interchanged for CLI activity, and COVID is being changed out for pneumonia, influenza, COVID. They're changing out those two things. They're really trying to scare us with these natural influxes of disease that happen. They happen due to the climate, and they happen due to all sorts of things, but they're outside of our control. It's just interesting because during the summer, the I.L.I activity is low, and during the winter, it is high. And these politicians keep scaring us with this new dark winter. The thing that worries me is that this I.L.I surveillance and the fact that due to the impact of COVID-19 on I.L.I surveillance and the fact that the state and territorial epidemiologist report relies heavily on I.L.I activity, reporting for this system will be suspended for the 2020-2021 influenza season. So no longer will we have this geographical data. They're going to CLI. It's going to be tracking by the COVID system. It's going to be not I.L.I.Net. It's going to be this COView. And this COView, they're showing you, they're starting it for surveillance of COVID-19. They're so desperate for people to get SARS-CoV-2. That's like their COVID-19 is not SARS-CoV-2. SARS-CoV-2 falls under the umbrella of COVID-19, but COVID-19 and monies spent on it is a bit more arbitrary than they want to make it seem. They want to make it seem like the only cause of COVID-19 is SARS-CoV-2, but the causes of COVID-19 are abundant and abound, as many and are as varied as cause any and all sorts of influenzas and pneumonias. The data summarized by COView draws from a combination of existing influenza and viral respiratory disease surveillance systems. So they're going to use this new COView, and it's what they're going to be basing a lot of decisions off of. And I can only imagine that if they had this to show some sort of map to show the United States on the news, but it was COVID-19. They were able to put COVID, not influenza. They were able to put COVID-19 over the map, and as it just lights up red as it goes into the winter season, the horror, the horror, the horror. It is very important to know the difference between COVID-19 as well as SARS and CoV-2. They're really trying to yank our chain. I don't think that they should be allowed to stop reporting this influenza-like activity geographically. But there's a number of different instances I can show you where they're really just obviously trying to subvert all of this information into the COVID-19 pile because they want it. People get influenza. Influenza is something that happens. Influenza is something we're ready for, and influenza is something that we handle. This COVID-19 is they're trying to turn us into cowards. Anytime a person makes a decision and that decision is based off of fear, that's called cowardice. That is called cowardice. If the number one rationale behind your decision is fear, that is called cowardice. And I am a coward, so trust me, I can spot it. I got it.